All right, I'm going to give this a try. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Bible plan video. I was planning to make more of these during Genesis to try to give a bit more of a helpful things to look out for, things to keep an eye out on as you read it, but I got sick, so didn't make any of those. And just got caught up today, or yesterday rather, with the reading plan myself from being sick. With that said, I wanted to talk about a couple of things from Genesis and then touch on some things from Exodus, as we are, if you are caught up with today, then you will be at the end of Exodus 15, which is right after the Exodus event happens and the Song of Moses, and then they are at the springs of Elim, I think. Yes. So, some things from Genesis. I hope that you noticed, as you read it, the continual pattern of the garden happening over and over again. That there was continually these situations in which there's a lot of garden imagery, and the stakes are similar as the first event, and then there's these little miniature falls that happen. The first one is really just a really big one, which was the whole flood thing. And then right after, you have sort of a new garden with Noah, but he immediately fails. His nakedness is uncovered because he eats of the tree in an inappropriate way by getting wasted off of it, which is exactly what happens in the garden in a different sense and different degree, but the acts are supposed to be paralleling each other in that. In a similar way, you follow through with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob all the way to Joseph. And Joseph is the one guy out of everybody in Genesis who's really kind of a good guy. Every other patriarch fails in some way. They fall into some kind of serious sin. Many times it is related to their relationships with their wives and their children. But this first book is so critical because it gives you the names and places of the world of the Israelites. And this would have been massive. Think about it. You're an Israelite in the company of Moses, coming out of the Exodus, as we just read today. This is your history. This is your family history that you now have access to. Presumably Moses receives this very concrete version of Genesis somewhere around the time of the Exodus. And he's able to communicate this to the people around the time, probably, it's probably part of what's read to them in the covenant, the establishment of the covenant at Sinai, which we're going to get to, I think, tomorrow. But this is the background. And this, the promise in Genesis 3 of this seed of the woman who is going to crush the seed of the serpent, and that the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman are going to be at war with each other the entire time, that is playing itself out over and over again in everything. It's in the background of everything. You're expected to remember it. It doesn't have to, the Bible doesn't have to spell it out for you every time it's making a reference to the garden, because you're expected to remember that it happened. So as you see them, they're there. Just like the Bible doesn't have to spell out every single time that Jesus is present in the Old Testament. He's there. It's one of our controlling means of interpretation, is that Jesus is, in some sense, in every page of the Old Testament, because he tells us that in Luke chapter 24. Which means that when we're reading the Old Testament, we need to be thinking about, okay, how is Christ present in this text? Sometimes it's a very clear and explicit way, sometimes it's not so much, but there's some sense in which this story is about him. Genesis is about him, which is why the Genesis 3 promise is about him, and we can follow it and track with it throughout Genesis and Exodus and ongoing all the way up to Malachi, and run right into the New Testament without there being any real break in what's happening. So there's a lot more I wish I could have said, but was sick, about Genesis. Now Exodus, again, written by Moses. This is a critical book for the rest of the Old Testament as well, because this is the recounting of the salvation event of the Old Testament, the Passover, the Exodus. This story is repeated, it is alluded to, and will be fulfilled in Christ when he brings his people out of slavery, not to Egyptians, but to their gods, to idols, to all that is rebellion and sin against their Creator. Jesus will bring his people out of slavery to that. And that's also happening in the Exodus. There's a direct attack upon not just the Egyptians, but their gods. A very important line that we read today. Where am I getting this from? In Exodus chapter 12, forgive me, I don't know if you can't see it. I don't have verse numbers in this, so it's in Exodus 12. If you read it today, you can find it. It's the second paragraph. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am Yahweh. I am the Lord. So God is not just the signs and wonders being done, the plagues are attacks upon the gods that the Egyptians worship. Because who else are they going to call upon to try to subvert what's happening to them? And so he just goes for the throat, goes straight after them, and disproves the existence of their gods by controlling all of their domains that they were supposed to control. We offer these offerings to Anubis, to Set, to Osiris, to whoever, in order to appease them and get their blessing on these different areas of life. And Yahweh says, no, every area of life belongs to me. I made this world. Genesis 1 is in the rearview mirror. We just read it a few days ago, over a week ago now, but it's not that long ago. And remember that. Some of the most important things to remember come from those opening chapters of Genesis, which is why I covered mostly that on my first video like this. God is the creator. He is the creator. There are no other gods. That's what we're going to get that spelled out really clearly when we read the Ten Commandments, but it's being spelled out through the narrative of the Bible so far. From Genesis 1, God creates in the beginning. Guess what it doesn't say? That he makes other gods. There aren't any. They don't exist. And before Genesis 1:1 happens, there is just God. And then God creates. So that is a controlling reality to the way that the rest of everything is unfolding. keep it in mind, remember it, remember the fall, remember the garden, remember the initial creation and its goodness, remember all of those things as you read, because things are starting to get bloody. I mean, they already had up to this point, even through Genesis. Things got pretty gnarly. And that doesn't detract from the goodness of God or this whole Bible that we're reading. Rather, it exemplifies how deeply wrong things are and have gone through the fall and through all that happening. So, as you read, remember Genesis, and hopefully as well, the way that I try to structure it was that you would be able to remember where things are. So if you want to go back and read and remind yourself of stuff, it's like, okay, I'm going to cheat and pull it up, but, which you could do this. You could just go back, look at the reading plan. You could even make a note next to each section. Okay, on Monday the 3rd on Genesis 1-5, I read creation to Babel. Genesis 6-11, not creation to Babel, creation to Noah. Genesis 6-11, I read Noah to Babel. Genesis 12-23, that's Abraham. 24-26, that's Isaac. 27-36, that's Jacob. 37-50, that's Judah and Joseph. Mostly Joseph. Then one chapter dedicated to Judah. There's reasons for that. Again, things I wish I could have talked about and got sick. Exodus 1-6, that's the Moses' birth, exile, and then calling at the bush. Exodus 7:15, that's the plagues and the drowning of the Egyptians in the Red Sea, and so on and so forth. 16-19 will be the lead up to Sinai. 20-24 is going to be 10 Commandments, and so on and so forth. That's part of why I structured the reading plan the way that I did, was to try to help you get familiar with where things are. So when you are interested in a further study of something, okay, I'm reading the book of Galatians, and Paul keeps talking about Abraham. Where's Abraham? Off top of my head, well, maybe I know it off top of my head because I've been reading things in a structured way. That's chapters 12-23. It's somewhere in there. I can narrow things down well enough to where I can just jump over and be like, I found it. Great. So hopefully that structure has been helpful to you already. It's been helpful to me already. And there's that. So enjoy Exodus, and as you read it, try to not take notes necessarily, but to remember the key events. There's calling of Moses, the bush. There's the Exodus event. There's, even the drowning them in the Red Sea, and then the people passing through water and living. Call back to Noah and the flood. There's similarities, parallels. Focus on them, track with them as everything unfolds, and eventually you'll be able to trace them all the way to Jesus and his life and then what he does, and all the way to a new city. So, hope this is helpful, and I will be making more stuff as we go. Definitely going to do a Leviticus video. Probably be helpful for people. All right. Goodbye.